Hey everyone. What I want to talk about today is diet. And what I mean by diet is how we're eating. So, when we're thinking about hormone symptoms, right? Bloating, breast soreness, brain fog, headaches, heavy periods, lots of cysts in the body, can't sleep so well, moody, anxious, whatever your list of symptoms are that relates to hormones, um, you have to know that what you're eating makes can make over 80% of the difference to how you're feeling. Now, hearing that kind of in general, it's like, oh yeah, well, of course, how I eat is gonna make me feel a certain way. But the belief is sort of like hard to believe that changing your diet will actually make that big of a difference. And so often we're kind of reluctant to make changes, or sometimes we know the diet changes will help, but we just don't feel like we have the power to make those changes. So I've been there myself, by the way. I was like, and you can ask anyone I know if you happen to have mutual acquaintances with me. I was a full-on chocolate addict for at least 10 years. Like I'd start my day with half a chocolate bar. No, it was dark chocolate, it was 80%, but it had cane sugar in it. Like it's sugar, right? And every day I'm like feeding this to myself. And I just wasn't ready to part with it. And I knew I had some hormone symptoms that definitely weren't being helped by the fact that I was having sugar every day. And there was a few other things in my diet that needed some help and attention, but I didn't feel like I could make the change. Like I just didn't see how that reality was possible. Anyways, fast forward, like finally I'm ready to make this change. For me, things had to hit rock bottom to some extent. I had to really feel like symptomatic. And to be honest, what I did was I was doing some meditation and it kept coming to me this thought, oh, I need to change my diet. I need to change my diet. And I got really excited about it. And then, attracted in some nutritional cleansing protocols that really changed my life. So I lived through this lesson that how we eat affects our hormones, because when I shifted my diet and I did a massive cleanup and I did it overnight because I was so excited and motivated, so that helped. Immediately I felt better and my periods were great. My cycles were great. I felt amazing. So I know the power of diet just from firsthand experience. I also work with a lot of women and I see how the women who have really pristine diets, when I meet them, don't need as much hormonal help. And the hormones that they do take work better for them. So don't underestimate the power of a diet change. Now, what type of diet change? That's a whole other question that might require a consultation because I don't believe there's one size fits all. But if there's, first of all, if there's obvious changes that you should make them because you're worth it, right? And it's going to feel amazing when you don't suffer. So obvious changes. By the way, I talk all about this in my course, You're Not Going Crazy. I think it's part 3. It's about diet, what to do, what not to do, and what to think about, what factors to consider. So check it out if you want like more detail. But basically, we know we need to cut out the obvious crap, right? The sugars, the refined foods, the processed foods, the foods that's not really food. Usually there's sugar in there, maybe some unhealthy fats, like the obvious stuff. Alcohol often is tolerated less well as you're approaching menopause. You might have noticed that already. You're more sensitive to it. There is a reason for this. Our livers are getting a little bit more burnt out by the time we're in menopause, right? A whole lifetime of toxic burden to deal with. The livers get a little tired. It's not going to handle alcohol in the same way. That's a clue that you really do need to clean up your diet and also reduce the alcohol. So one of the reasons why cleaning up our diet is so important is because what we're eating, it's not just like, oh, I shouldn't do this because it's an unhealthy addiction or sugar's bad. Yes, sugar is bad, but the reason, more importantly, is that all of the foods we eat are feeding things in our body. Most of the things it's feeding are things that shouldn't be there, that we don't want to feed, such as pathogens, viruses, parasites, candida, fungus, mold, like all of these little things in the body, we can support through our diet, or we can choose to stop supporting and say, bye-bye, we don't want you anymore. If you have my case actually was this, and many people have this. So if there's a parasite in the body, it's going to want sugar. It's going to want you to crave sugar all the time because it's feeding right off of that, right? Same with candida. So it's feeding off of the sugar. So you're like, oh, I have these sugar cravings. Why? It's probably because there's something in you craving it. And so you're eating it, you're feeding the bugs. When I cut out sugar, okay, I did feel a little bit of a detox reaction. Like I had a little bit of inflammation for a day or two, which I recognized what it was. It was a parasite dying. Like, how disgusting is that? But it's true. We stop feeding these guys at their source and they will die and go away, which is amazing. So we have to recognize that food is medicine. Every food that you're eating serves a purpose. Is it serving to elevate you and to nourish you? Or is it serving to feed something bad in you that's going to drag down your energy and drag down your mood? And yes, you should realize that these pathogens make us moody and depressed and anxious. You do not want to be feeding them. So cleaning up the diet is critical. Reach out to me for a one-on-one consultation if you want to talk specifically about you. You can also check out, like I said, in my course, I have a whole section on diet that gives you a great overview. I will leave you with this pearl. You can't go wrong with real foods. Well, you could go wrong, I should say, but you're better off eating a whole food diet. So anything processed and all that, you start by cutting it out. Real foods means you're getting your nutrients from foods that exist in nature. So my diet is like 80% fruits and vegetables, root vegetables. I do not shy away from fruits and vegetables because of their sugar content. I don't need to, because that sugar is actually processed very well by my body, and it is by yours too, provided that you're eating it in the right way. Sometimes a good food can be sabotaged by the fact that it's in an environment with bad foods. So if I had lots of like fat in my diet, unhealthy oils, and like basically a heavy kind of fat and oily diet, that doesn't work well with carbs. So I'm not really going to feel good when I start increasing my apple intake. In fact, I might feel worse. What works the best is when we're on a lower fat diet and we're eating our fruits, and our sugars without the presence of fat around to kind of like muck it up. So I eat lots of white potatoes. Yes, I do. White potatoes, yams, root vegetables, carrots, any fruit under the sun I love and I will eat it. But I don't have it with almond butter or avocado, although that's not so bad. But almond butter I definitely wouldn't do, or coconut oil I don't do, or butter on a potato I don't do, because it corrupts the sugar. And I want my sugars clean and unadulterated. And actually, one of my favorite sort of resources for healthy carbohydrates, and they're known as the 4 critical carbs. If you look up Anthony William online, he has a whole theory about healthy carbs versus unhealthy. So he calls them the 4 critical clean carbohydrates. It's squash, potatoes, fruits, vegetables, and raw honey. And I think he puts coconut water in there too. Like, there's some very, very pure carbs that you want to eat without the fats. So you can get great energy and great nutrients. And yeah, so like that's one big tenet of the diet. You can have like meat and fish and everything, just pick the best forms of it, like the organic, antibiotic-free kind of varieties, the wild fish. And my suggestion is don't mix it with a lot of fat. It already is fatty. You don't need all that extra fat. The fat is just extra burden on your liver. So those are basically some steps you can take. So number 1, do the obvious change, cutting out the foods that you know are bad for you and minimize the alcohol. Number 2, bring in lots of whole foods, lots of healthy carbohydrates without a lot of fat around it to compromise their function. And for all the rest, there's actually a lot more you could do, but that's a very good first step. Reach out to me, check out my course for more information. I will also probably post more information in the future about this, but I'm hoping that this has inspired you to take control of your health in your own hands, to help eliminate the fungus, the mold, and the parasites and all that stuff you don't want growing in your body. And then your symptoms will naturally start to get better, and you will not need nearly as much hormone if you're into bioidentical hormones. I hope that helps, and I look forward to explaining more and talking with you more next time.